Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show, and it is our special Veterans Day episode. And on today's episode, we have two very special guests, two veterans in our studio. We have Timothy Mabry, who is also a candidate for Lieutenant Governor for the state of Texas, and we have James Matlock, who is also who is also running as a candidate for the Texas Railroad Commissioner. So very glad to have these men in the studio today and to have Veterans Day special. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Doing great, Chris. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for being on. So, Timothy, can you just give me an idea? Tell me what branch of service that you served in and how long you were there and about your experience.
Well, Chris, thank you for having us. It's an amazing day out here in Houston. And I served in the Navy on the USS Arleigh Burke DDG 51. I went in as an undesignated fireman, and I struck for a hull technician within the year of being on board the ship. And I will say, being in the Navy, when you hear the recruiters say, join the Navy, see the world, you definitely do. I went up and down the Mediterranean. I got to go to Israel, a lot of the Mediterranean countries, and it's just extremely beautiful there. And if you're out in the middle of nowhere on the ship, it is amazing just to be out there on the deck of the ship, hear the ocean, look up, and just see nothing but darkness. Beautiful experience.
What ship were you on?
The USS Arleigh Burke DDG 51. DDG means Guided Missile Destroyer.
So how big was that ship?
It was like 500 feet. It was a little tin can.
How many people were on it?
During deployment, it was like 500-600 people.
And what was the purpose of the ship? What sort of missions did it do?
So our ship, we did anti-piracy off the coast of Somalia, like in the Horn of Africa. And then we did missile defense with Israel against Syria.
And did you have any interactions with pirates?
Our ship boarded a couple of pirate ships a couple of times. And it was a unique experience when our ship started to do that, because I was in engineering as a hull tech. We're always in the engineering realm. And just one day, out of nowhere, I'm in the engineering watching the instruments. I see all the motors and the engine speeds are kicking up. It's like, okay, here we go. About 30 minutes, an hour later, our ship captain gets on the intercom and says, hey, we received a distress signal from one of the ships. They are being attacked by pirates, and we are en route.
And what happened?
Well, we launched the boat, and we sent a crew out on board the ship, on the pirate ship. So I was out on the deck.
Were they Somali pirates? I'm sorry, were they Somali pirates?
I believe they were Somali pirates, yes, sir. And we were sitting out on the ship, like on the deck of the ship. We were watching the interactions take place. Unfortunately, they did not come across any pirates. They did a complete search of the ship, but our ship and our crew was ready to go for whatever was going to happen.
So essentially, you were protecting the high seas. A very valuable service, because if we don't have ships like the one that you were on out there, then everyone is vulnerable to the worst unthinkable things that can happen at sea.
Yes, sir. The U.S. Navy does a great job at protecting our seas and our shipping lanes. But when a call for piracy comes out, we are Johnny on the spot to make sure that our sailors and our maritime people are safe.
Right, because isn't that the whole story of the early days, when I'm getting out, Tunisia, today's modern day Tunisia, where during the Thomas Jefferson years, the Brits pulled back on protecting the high seas, and then our sailors began being kidnapped by pirates down there off of Africa. And we had our first war. I'm having a mind miss right now what it was, but it makes me think of that. So, okay, great. So James, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Really glad to be here. Had a great day in Houston today. Been celebrating Veterans Day. So, I appreciate all the celebration here in Houston.
Very good, very good. Tell us about your service. Where did you serve? What did you serve in the Army, or tell us where you served?
Well, Chris, I was a United States Marine, and you know, like Timothy, I spent most of my time on board an aircraft carrier. We went to Bosnia. I was part of an anti-terrorist unit, and we protected the ship when we were in port, protected the important dignitaries and such that came out to the boat,
You were in Bosnia during the Bosnia-Herzegovina war.
at the very beginning of it.
What year was that?
94. We went inland, and unfortunately I went dressed like I am today, minus the jacket. It was supposed to have been a UN mission, but my unit, a little small unit, we ended up sort of retaliating against the fact that they wanted us to wear the UN armband, the little blue cap, and all that stuff, to keep from intimidating people. But
Why would a UN armband be better than a U.S. Marine, insignia for the purposes of not intimidating? How does that argument work?
I'm not sure exactly.
It's because it doesn't make any sense. It's just one more anti-American sentiment that they're deploying on us in a globalist effort to move us to the New World Order.
Exactly. I know when we were overseas, every port we went into had signs, go home, Americans, your presence is not wanted nor needed. And, it took me several years to understand why that was thing then. So,
Yeah, I understand. Nobody wants a foreign infantry in their lands, but the idea that they'll take the United Nations over the Americans, I mean, the United Nations are the blue helmets, right?
yes.
I mean, I don't know if you've heard of some of the atrocities they've done on the African continent.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I mean, I just think that argument's nonsense. Oh, again, it's that assumption, that unexplained assumption that somehow the United Nations is superior to our own American forces. And that is a political statement by the globalists simply to get us one step closer to the New World Order.
Yes.
Okay, but anyway, so keep telling your story. So they wanted you to wear the United Nations armband, and you would not do it. So what happened?
We did not do that. So we went in with Wranglers, I went in Wranglers and brush poppers, boots, and a hat.
So you look like a Texan.
I look like a Texan, and when we got there, we spent a few days in a refugee camp, and got to know one of the families pretty well. And, while we were there were no bombs, no bullets flying or anything. We left, got back to the boat. When we got on the boat, we was watching CNN, and the bombing, shelling all started again. A few weeks later, got a letter from the family we were with. The dad didn't make it. Mom was okay, or the dad was in critical condition. Mom got hurt, but was okay. And the little boy that we stayed with, he was around 6, 7. He got killed. And, that was kind of pretty devastating news.
Okay, so you say that when you got there, that you didn't understand, that they told you to go home. You didn't understand, or something of that sort. Could you tell me again what you were saying?
Okay, every country we went to, every port of call we went to, I was on an aircraft carrier. And we, there were signs all over every major city around the world: go home, Americans, your presence is not wanted nor needed. And, we didn't really understand why. We were under the impression that Bosnia had a civil war going on. And, we were there to kind of...
to be demonized? No. I say we have the 1836 and 1776 mentality to come back and say, look, we're going to start pushing back. we're going to give power back to the people and the law enforcement and to support them from the highest offices. And as candidate for lieutenant governor in Texas, that is my promise to make sure that we have integrity and justice for American and Texas citizens. And if you are going against our country, if you are going against what we, the pissed off people, are wanting, then I'm going to call for your arrest. I don't care what level you're at. If you're an elected official, if you are a citizen, if you are going against Texas in this country, I will make sure that you get arrested and that you are held accountable here in Texas. And then with Texas Constitution, we can extradite somebody from another country. This is the power of Texas. And I say we execute that right here, right now, to protect this state, to protect this country. Because whatever happens in Texas, so goes the nation.
Yeah, very well said, Timothy. I would agree with your sentiment. So James, let's get back to your story with Bosnia. So tell me where we left off. That at that point in time, you were told that immigration was used, and that created division within that country. But go ahead, tell me more about your experience there.
That was the Zoom call that I had after 30 years after the fact, and I was given a stern warning, that unless we got the right people here in Texas, here in the United States, fill off our border and, protect our interests, then we would be experiencing the same thing. And, you brought up communism stuff earlier. If you look at major universities here in Texas, one of the leading organizations on campus is the Communist Party. How in the world did Texas get to where that is the fastest growing organization on a school campus, state funded?
I've been on campuses where I've seen the flyers openly advertising for recruitment.
Yeah.
You said that the family that you stayed with in Bosnia, that they didn't make it. Is that right? Can you tell that again, please?
Well, the mom,
Thousands of jobs that are being used and created for industrial and recreational hemp and THC-based products. And there's a big market for it, yes, but there's also major side effects or issues right now. Part of the big issue is veterans are using those products because it's beneficial to them. I have a good friend of mine who the VA prescribes him Halidol. If you don't know what Halidol is, it is a nasty drug with horrendous side effects. Part of the side effects that he experiences with Halidol is he will imagine things that that aren't existing. So he hallucinates. He will drool. He will act like he's drunk and have slurred speech when in fact that he can't. Or another side effect can be dry mouth. There's a lot of negative side effects with these hard medications that veterans, we don't want. We don't want those medications from the VA because we're getting opioids, we're getting other hard drugs that just make matters worse. There's one medication that you use for depression, and it's called bupropion. One of the side effects for bupropion is suicide. So you have a depression drug that you're going to give someone from the depressed, but a side effect is suicide. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So I know quite a few veterans who are using THC-based products for their everyday work, like everyday functioning. And we talked about earlier, the younger generations, they're not wanting to drink alcohol as much. The alcohol industry is taking a massive hit right now, and the younger generations using THC products that are going to use a gummy, maybe not in the high quantities to actually get intoxicated or get high, but just to function or have a little bit of relief.
Yeah, me and my wife, we went out for a Halloween party. We went to a club where there was a lot of young people. It was very interesting because the kids today, they weren't hammered smashed. They weren't falling over drunk. They weren't drunk at all. They were drinking very moderately. It was so different than when I was a kid, when kids just got blitzed. So I guess that they're doing gummies.
Well, and a part of that, one of the reasons why the younger generation is wanting to use more of a THC-based product over alcohol is growing up it was drilled into our heads of alcohol is bad, don't drink, don't drive, it can change lives. And I spent a decade in the fire department. I'm going to tell you this. I have not been to a fatality or majorly injured accident involving THC. I can't even tell you how many fatality and bad accidents I've responded to that were caused by alcohol. And the fact that there is a villainization of this is frustrating. We have an endocannabinoid system built into our bodies. And I firmly believe when God created this heaven and the earth, he said everything on this planet he creates is good for us, except there was one tree, and it was a tree of knowledge of good and evil. He said everything else. And if we have this system with the endocannabinoid system built into our bodies, and that it has been used for thousands of years, including in the Old Testament and with the Jews in Israel for centuries, like for millennia, this has been used. But yet, in the past 100 years, it has been demonized. It's been criminalized.
What is this stuff called?
So it has multiple names. Some people call it cannabis, marijuana, weed, THC. It's all the same plant.
And you're saying that this has been a product of mankind's use for different reasons since the beginning of time.
Yes, sir. And even in ancient China, the industrial hemp plant or hemp was used in animal feed. We used to use the hemp plant for shipbuilding, roads. We have been using this plant for thousands of years, dating back to the earliest records that we have, that this plant has been used. And yet somehow here in the United States, in the past 100 years, there has been a campaign against it. There's been a war.
Yeah, with reefer
completely
madness,
waged.
with reefer madness, right?
Yes. And it's insane. Like, you're hearing people say, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm going up against this. But if I'm going to call it out, if you're a Christian and you say this one plant is bad, but yet God gave us this, it was used in the Old Testament. And in the New Testament, one of Jesus' disciples, Luke was a physician. But when you actually start peeling the onion back and looking at the historical records and what plants that they were using that particular plant as medicine. So it's safe to say that, okay, Luke being a physician in that time period when Jesus was alive, that he would have been up to date on all the latest treatments and documents and say, okay, that is safe to say that Luke was more than likely using that plant as treatment. And yet now we're being villainized and criminalized for it.
Why is it demonized in America?
It started off in a campaign in the early 1900s. I'm working on some of the full bases of what industry it fully affected, but it first started off as a propaganda with the FBI to say, look, we don't like certain groups of people, and we're going to start squashing them. For Texas, it was the Hispanics, and in Louisiana, it was the African Americans. They used the marijuana plant, and we had massive fields growing in the Rio Grande Valley. Texas, that was one of the products that we had been growing here for centuries natively. And then a little over 100 years ago, there was a fear and lie campaign that was pushed out. The propaganda happened in such force that within a couple of generations, it was believed. As Adolf Hitler had said, if you want to change the perception of society, you first influence the youth. And with our own intelligence agencies, we have seen when a lie gets pushed again and again and again, it becomes truth, and you can eradicate the truth completely within 3 generations. And by the time the 3rd generation hits, guess what? Now that lie has become truth because you've accepted it. And everyone else who knew the lie or who knew that the lie was a lie is no longer alive.
Okay, so you're saying we had groves and groves of marijuana growing in Texas since the beginning of time?
Yes, sir, in the Rio Grande Valley.
That's fascinating. So there's a serious effort to suppress that.
Yes, sir. There's been a fight and a war against that the past 100 years. And it looked like we were on the right track here this session because my opponent was trying to criminalize 10% of Texans who used the THC product. Our Governor Abbott vetoed that complete ban and the criminalization. And our Agricultural Commissioner, Sid Miller, he's all for it. He's all for industrial hemp because we can see the mass uses. You can make over 50,000 products from industrial hemp. You can make wood that will not burn, that you can put a direct flame to it for 30 minutes and it will not burn. I've seen the videos and the testing done with this. I have friends who are getting asked by California right now to build homes out of full hemp because it doesn't burn. It's an industry that is ramping up. Since the 2018 Farm Bill that President Trump in his first term signed in, we got to see the industry start to explode and to grow to be substantial. And now it is rivaling and it is pushing forward. And yet again, as we're starting to see more growth happen, it is getting stifled.
So isn't President Trump right now proposing a nationwide ban on THC?
He's supporting it. I don't believe he was the one who pushed it forward. But he's supporting it because we want to get the government open. I don't know if that's something he is fully supportive of. My thing is, President Trump in his first term, he said, look, let's do some regulation. Let's expand industrial hemp. And that was on the right track. But now something has happened this past couple of weeks where now there's a bit of a shift. And I want to stick with Governor Abbott on, hey, look, this in Texas is a multi-billion dollar a year industry. We have 50,000 plus jobs, 8,000 businesses, and the industry keeps ramping up. And we can do so much good with that. And we need to bring back industry and industrial complexes here. Now, one unique thing when it comes to industrial hemp, under the 2018 Farm Bill that Trump put into effect, he had an order for for China to buy some of our industrial hemp. But we didn't have enough, and we still don't have enough to produce to send to China and meet the quantities of his Farm Bill. So if we're able to focus on the industrial hemp and the grows here in Texas and the United States, we're going to be able to export that to foreign countries. We can solve a lot of our issues and start reinvigorating farming in Texas and America. This is one of the ways that we can make America industrial might and great again.
I mean, like, we've on this show, we've talked about the amount of natural resources. James talked about it considerably about the amount of natural resources under our feet. It's unimaginable how much is under there. We've talked about the agriculture sector and how productive that is in the state of Texas, affecting the world. We're a behemoth there. And this addition that potentially, if we could add THC and be just a big producer there as well, it's just amazing what the state of Texas brings to the markets. But instead, we have our political class trying to push casinos on us. It's like our political class wanting to bring Hollywood to Texas. It's like our political class, they don't get it. They are always being served by corporate interests that, by the way, right now, our energy, we had the railroad commissioner on, and he explained how our energy policy is being dictated by investors of the companies we contract with, and those investors are not Texans. So they're the ones that are deciding that we get windmills. Okay, guys, I want to switch subjects real quick. One of the things we talked about in the room was the Marvin Nichols Reservoir and what's going on there. James, what is the issue with the Marvin? Well, first of all, tell us where it's at, where it's located, and what the issue is with it.
Okay, the Marvin Nichols Reservoir is in Northeast Texas. It is where Region C Water Board, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth area, is in direct conflict with Region D, the Northeast Texas Water Board. They're wanting to use eminent domain to take up roughly.
Who is wanting to use eminent domain?
Region C.
What is Region C?
Region C of the Texas Water Development.
Okay, so the Texas Water Development Board is an agency that constructs reservoirs for the purposes of maintaining water so we can have water available to us, correct?
Well, they find different ways of water development, whether it's drilling wells or using reservoirs or other means, desal in the Gulf, or whatever. Their main mission is to make sure Texas has water for sale.
Okay, so again, who wants
Region C
of the Texas Water?
of the Texas Water Board.
Okay,
And
Tell me about that.
they are wanting to use eminent domain on 300,000 acres of farmland, timberland, primarily in that entire area, rural, and it is, you know, very, it has a lot of agricultural aspects to it, so we would lose a lot of
Okay,
timberland.
can I ask, can you quantify how much is 300?
Looking at the project, trying to plan where to put it and stuff like that in the 40s and 50s. But, since the 70s, the people in that area have not been able to rest because they've had the gloom and doom of, okay, any minute they're going to come knocking on the door, okay, well, we're starting dam
Yeah.
construction. And
I mean, like, how would their values of their real estate appreciate? They would never appreciate under that. Their values of their homes are basically have got to be worthless because they have this looming threat over their heads.
yes. And, there'll be a lot of towns. If
How do
they
you plan
it,
development of the town? How do you plan development of the schools, the roads, infrastructure investment when this looming threat exists?
Or just life in general. Like, there's a big issue when it comes to when these land grabs happen. So one of the companies that deal with, they bought her land for, I think she said about $5,000 to $10,000 an acre, what was at fair market value at that time. So a couple of years after the dam was built and the lake was filled up, her property was considered lakefront property, 20 to 30 acres, and it was subdivided into multiple lots.
Yeah, and they
Where
knew that.
ultimate-
They knew that going in. There's someone there who has a bid on that. They know that. Who was able to sell that land for that amount of money? What county official's family member? That's the question.
And it's a company that's doing it. It's a company that's back that does it, and they sold it for, I think she said, several hundred. What it ended up being, as it got parsed out, it was like 200,000 to 300,000 per acre. And now with the Marvin's Nickel Reservoir, there's a survey company that has to sign off on the environmental and how it all works. Now that company is also friends and good relationships with the company who has the real estate. Now here's the other kicker with it. The Marvin's Nickel Reservoir is getting its name, Marvin's Nickel, based off of the surveying company's engineer who had passed away. So let me ask you this. Is it fair for Texans if a company who's being contracted to go and do a land survey and for environmental to make sure it's going to be great for the people, that now one of their former engineers, their lake and reservoir is going to get pushed out?
Yeah, what they're doing is they build the project and then they pretend like it's a monument to the great Texans of the planet. And this guy Marvin Nichols is one of them. It's making all these assumptions so that the later generations of Texans walk around talking about this man Marvin Nichols as if he's somebody considerable, in the history of the state of Texas. It's propaganda.
Well, I went and testified.
Real quick, I got to ask a question.
Okay.
Where is Marvin's Nichols? Where's this project at?
It is north of Mount Pleasant, north of I-30 primarily, between Oklahoma state line and down, sort of Paris or towards Texarkana.
Got you. Up north of Dallas.
Yes.
Okay, I apologize. I interrupted you. Keep talking.
But, I went and testified at Regency and Austin before the Natural Resource Committee of the House. The problem that I have coming from the Railroad Commission side, there's roughly 400 wells in that flood zone that they've got mapped out that were plugged in the 40s, 50s. Back then, sometimes, you just walk through. If it's not, if it don't have pressure on it, walk through, stick a rag down in the pipe and call it plug. And, those wells, some of them are currently leaking. We're going to go out and survey some of the wells that they're aware of and see, how we can maybe help fix some of those. But, if you put that much pressure from, a 67,000 acre lake, that much water pressure on it, it's going to push the plugs out. It'll, create an environmental disaster. and, you know, you'll end up with, water seep contaminated with oil and
Toxic
natural
water.
gas. Yes,
And then you have the largest reservoir in America that's full of toxic sludge water.
yes.
Okay, I got a question. Is there a need for this reservoir?
Gallons a day, yeah, that's gonna take a lot of water. But, you know, if the data centers dug a little, I call them reserve pits, you know, 40 by 40 by 10-foot deep pit, and, dig 3 of them, that's 300,000 gallons of water storage. Then after you dig, you know, after you have the 300,000 gallons, you recycle that water through and you end up with, you know, geothermal, cooling the water and putting it back in the pit. And, you know, then you're reducing the draw on the
Yeah,
grid.
but isn't there an issue with if you use spent water, that water is dirty. Is it going to gum up the works?
No, if they use